Now we move on to the next video in topic 5.4 and 5.5, the phases of the Industrial Revolution. And in this video, we're going to focus on the global phase. The global phase begins in 1850 and will last to the end of the modern age in 1900. So, just a review, when we focus on this topic, we're answering two questions. How did the Industrial Revolution spread? And how did the Industrial Revolution change the modes and the locations of production from 1750 to 1900? Also, how did the new technology shape economic production from 1200 to 1900? So, in the first video, we talked about the characteristics that define each phase of the Industrial Revolution. And in the two preceding videos, we described, first of all, the British phase and the Western phase of industrialization. So, this is going to be the last phase that we look at. So, we're going to see some big effects of the spread and the new technology that is going to fundamentally change how production is done, and where production took place. So, just a review, when you take notes on this, pay attention to where and when things are going on. Focus on the key industries and the sources of power. In this video, we're going to see some significant new sources of power, which are going to fundamentally change the industries. Also, pay attention to the key technologies. So, this is the global phase. And the global phase overall is characterized by two important things. One is going to be the second industrial revolution, and the other is going to be the development of state sponsored industrialization. So we are now going to see the first areas outside of the West, meaning the enlightened Western culture areas. And those areas will be Egypt and the Ottoman Empire, Russia, and finally Japan. So this begins with the Second Industrial Revolution. This basically is the second wave of industrialization because it comes up not only with new sources of power, but also new raw materials. So, as you can see from this, one of the new raw materials and one of the new sources of power is going to be steel and oil. Steel is going to be the new material that's made, the new industry, and oil is going to be the new power source. During this time period, we see many effects, new forms of business organization. This is when we see a lot of the problems with the Industrial Revolution, essentially seeing difficult condition for workers. But we also see advances in transportation, being the railroads become more widely used, larger factories, huge profits, but we also begin to see labor organize. We also see two brand new inventions, two technologies. One is going to be electricity, that would be a source of power, and two is going to be the telegraph. So when we kind of break this down, the key things that define the second industrial revolution are first of all going to be steel. Steel is made by the Bessemer process. And in the picture in the upper left, you see a Bessemer furnace. A guy by the name of Henry Bessemer creates this. Yes, he is using Watt steam engine at first, but what he's doing is he's injecting much more oxygen into the process, creating a much hotter chamber that further removes the impurities and makes steel. Steel is much more stronger than the iron made by Henry Cort and could be used for more things. Another thing that we see is the development of electricity and the internal combustion engine. So when we have electricity, what we're beginning to see is this brand new power source that basically could be wired and also adopted to many different uses. And then with the internal combustion engine, what you begin to see is the use of petroleum projects that are going to provide for greater transportation. So during this time period, you see the Industrial Revolution begin to spread to areas such as Russia, Egypt and the Ottoman Empire, and finally Japan. And all three of these areas are going to be driven by economic nationalism. Russia and the Ottomans basically were old land empires, and they saw the growing influence and the growing strength of these industrialized nations such as France, such as England, such as the United States, and they really feared for their survival. So they adopted industrialization, first of all, to create a better economy, to bring in more money, but also to create an elite military to be able to protect themselves. So when you talk about how they industrialized, you're basically looking at state sponsored industrialization. This is the process of industrialization used by the developing nations in Asia and later Africa and South America, in which the government is the main entrepreneur and uses policies to promote industrial growth, such as enlisting foreign investment and encouraging state monopolies. The goal of this is to become as strong as the West so you can survive the West. And again, this is very driven by economic nationalism. Now, on the flip side, you can basically see that these areas did not have the correct factors, especially the capital technology, the capital money, and the entrepreneurs. So instead of trying to create them, the government is just using their power to fulfill the role. Now, the other area that industrializes during this time period is Japan. And Japan has been closed off ever since the 1600s. Remember, Japan during the Age of Exploration feared Western influence and the spread of Christianity that would destroy the religious beliefs and the legitimacy that backed up the emperor and the shogunate. So Japan is forced to industrialize by the United States. More on that story in topic 5.6. And eventually uses state sponsored industrialization to create a very powerful industrial economy and to also lay the foundations for the Second World War. Yes, the foundations of the Second World War are going to be laid starting after 1850. No, Bailey. Not every toy's for you.